Welcome to the Pennsylvania Trolley Museum's Zoom series, Trolleyology. My name is Kristen Fredrickson. I'm the manager of visitor experience at the Trolley Museum. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm glad you got here. Welcome back to everybody who's joined us before for previous programs. This virtual series features programs on Pennsylvania transit history topics, stories of the trolley era, and art collection that you can experience from home, usually on a Tuesday or a Wednesday. And we're going to continue these as long as we have presenters. So if you have a presentation that fits our mission, please let me know. So anything about Pennsylvania, the trolley era, cities where our streetcars come from. And if you have something that doesn't quite fit those guidelines, please feel free to reach out anyway. We'll have a full list of upcoming programs on our website at patrolley.org. I can share that in the chat box in just a couple minutes here. We only have one scheduled so far. That'll be April 22nd. It'll be on the Norristown high-speed line, but we're working on getting some more presenters throughout the year. And I want to extend a very special thank you to those of you who donated while registering for tonight's program, and anybody who's made a donation through our website this year. We really, really appreciate your support, especially of our virtual programs. Okay, a brief introduction. For those who might be new, we were established in 1954 as the Arden Electric Railway by a group of trolley enthusiasts called the Pittsburgh Electric Railway Club. And we opened to visitors just a few years later in 1963. We're actually located along the former interurban route between Pittsburgh and Washington, PA. And now we have over 50 trolleys and electric railway cars here. You can take a 4-mile scenic ride on at least 2 different cars operating on the day of your visit. Last year we had over 48,000 visitors, which is super exciting. So we're growing and we can't wait for you to come see us if you haven't seen us before. A couple updates from the museum here. We now have all of our exhibits delivered. So you'll see a few photos here on the screen of an air brake exhibit, a voltage loss exhibit, switches, signals, and circuits. So these were a collaboration between us and the Carnegie Science Center. They've all been delivered now. It's super exciting. Great for kids and adults, to be honest. Lots of interactives for people to come see. So those are all in our Welcome and Education Center, which, if you're just discovering us, opened in November of 2023. So we're super excited. Come check these out next time you're here. We've got a ton of spring events going on at the museum this year. If you're one of our members, we do have a Members Day coming up April 5th. You should have gotten some correspondence about that already. And it's also our volunteer appreciation dinner. And I think we had close to 25,000 hours put in by our volunteers in 2024. So we're super grateful for that. Bunny Trolley, of course, is a staple of the spring season. It'll be April 11th through 13th and the 18th and 19th. My favorite part of that is probably the live bunnies that the local 4-H club brings to pet. They're so soft. And then May 4th is Free Museum Day. And that is through Washington County Tourism. So you can get your tickets at washcofreemuseumday.com. And I'll have that on the screen at the end of the show as well. Our Black Tie Gala, our streetcar soiree, is actually sold out now, but we still have tickets available for the Speakeasy on May 16th. Sorry about that. That'll be super fun. I can't wait. There's a photo at the bottom there from last year of some folks dancing. I am really, really excited. It's going to be really atmospheric, and I hope you guys can come check that out. And then the only other thing that would fit on this screen was our street fair, May 17th and 18th. I'm super excited because we just booked the Pittsburgh swing dance group. So they're going to come teach some swing dancing during the day. We've got lots of different performers, jugglers, fire eaters, stilt walkers, things like that. So come check that out May 17th and 18th. And lastly, I did want to mention for our friends with the East Penn Traction Club, they've got their 27th National Meet coming up in May 15th through 17th. So unfortunately, that's the same weekend as our street fair. But if you can't make the street fair, hopefully you can head on over to the East Penn Meet, which should be a lot of fun, especially if you're really into trolley modeling. That's at eastpenn.org/meet. So go check that out too. Okay, so now I'd like to introduce today's presenter, David Warner. Dave is a retired U.S. Navy commander. During his 20-year career, he was the chief engineer of a nuclear-powered submarine and a member of the commissioning crew of the USS Albuquerque. Post-Navy, he's worked for over 28 years in the passenger rail industry, including nearly 7 years as the chief vehicle engineer at the other streetcar operator in Pennsylvania, SEPTA. Together with different co-authors, Dave has written 4 books about Amtrak subjects: The Metroliners, published in 2016, and 50 Years of Amtrak Trains, 2022, were created with Bruce Goldberg. In 2023, Amtrak by the Numbers 2, which is a much improved version of the 2011 Amtrak by the Numbers, in Dave's own words, was published with L. Simon and Kevin Udaley as co-authors. Dave's first published photo graced the cover of the February 1976 issue of Traction and Models. It was an image of Pittsburgh's The Spirit of 1776 bicentennial painted trolley on Arlington Avenue. Dave recently moved to the western edge of the SEPTA service area in Delaware County, PA, along with his wife Anne and 2 cats. Through the past 45 years, Anne has remained the same, while various cats have come and gone. Dave and Anne have 2 grown sons, both of whom work at Lockheed Martin. Okay. At the end of this presentation, we will have a question and answer session with Dave, but the chat box will be open throughout the program. So feel free to enter questions and comments throughout the show, and we can read through those at the end. And I believe Dave will be able to see those while he's presenting as well. Okay, at this time, I'm going to ask everybody to turn off their videos. We can turn those back on at the end. Dave, you're welcome to keep yours on for a few minutes if you like, if you want people to know who you are. And then we'll also stay muted throughout the presentation as well. And just a reminder, this is being recorded, will be shared on YouTube at a later date. All right. Thank you, everybody. Dave, take it away.
All right. Oops. Ready from start. Turn it on. Share. Replace current share.
There you go.
All right.
Looks good to me.
Yes, looks good. Let me reset this just a second, though.
Looks like some folks from other museums are joining us as well. So hello.
That's good. All right, here we go. So good evening, everyone.
Oh, we're not seeing your presentation just yet.
You're not seeing the presentation yet. Okay.
No, we did, and then it unshared.
All right. Well, that was very rude of it. Let's try it one more time. All right. Yeah. Desktop 1.
Got it.
All right. Now it says I'm screen sharing.
Yes.
And of course, it didn't work like it did this morning, but that's all right. So, good evening, everyone. I'm Dave Warner. I'm 6 months older than I was when we did the show last time. Well, I'm 6 months older in 1971 calendar time because the last show really was about a year ago, but it was from mid-April of 1971. And now we jump forward 6 months to October of 1971 to 1 month and counting, Brownsville Road. If you remember, I was not even 17 at the time of the last presentation, and now I'm 17 and 2 months. And I have a new camera. So you're going to see the difference between an Agfa rail rangefinder camera and a Yashica rangefinder camera that I bought after an unfortunate incident where I learned that not all the people in East Cleveland are friendly to photographers of light rail cars. So the reason I went to Pittsburgh in October of 1971 was because when I was there in April, I learned that the 44, 49, and 53 were going to be abandoned later in the year, somehow in the era before internet. I learned that it was going to occur in November, and thanks to a 2-day break that Montgomery County, Maryland had to have a teacher's workshop, the kids got off, and in 1971, I went to Pittsburgh. I always went on a trolley trip for those things. The first year, 1969, I went to Philadelphia. 1970, went to Boston. And so you can see there's a trend that you try to find a place that's got PCCs that you can get to during the workshop in October. So that's how we ended up in Pittsburgh in October of 1971. But before I continue, I would like to say that since the last presentation in real time, I have been to the Pennsylvania Trolley Museum. It's my third visit, but the first time where I really had some time to spend it. There's only one way to describe it. Awesome. So if you haven't been, you should go. If you're not a member, you should become a member. It's also got, there's those of you who are members at other trolley museums, you can get into a lot of the other museums for free. So if you join the Pennsylvania Trolley Museum, if you due to a nice group of interactive and admission deals. So in April of 1971, Amtrak had not yet begun operations, so the trip to Pittsburgh was via the Capital Limited. In October, Amtrak was in existence, and so I took the Broadway Limited from Union Station at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, got into Pittsburgh at 2 o'clock in the morning. Little did I know that in most of the 70s decade, I would be passing through Pittsburgh numerous times on the train to go to Chicago because I went to Northwestern University and my mode of choice was taking the train. And it seemed like no matter whatever the schedule was, train running late, train running on time, which was about zero. This was Penn Central in the 70s. 2 o'clock was the time the train got in. It was always within a couple minutes at 2 o'clock. So I get into Pittsburgh now at 2 o'clock, not even midnight, 2 o'clock. And what do? Well, back in those days, you walk down into downtown, catch a trolley, and head out and explore. Before people start chatting at me saying, no, they're called streetcars in Pittsburgh, I will say the same disclaimer I did last time. Yes, I know that, but I have been in towns that call them everything, from trolleys to streetcars to trams. So please bear with me if you are a diehard Pittsburgher. Also, as Kristen said, I do have the capability to see chat messages. Whether I can get to them right away will remain to be seen. The idea is that if I say something egregious and you all correct me, I would like to get that corrected right away. But pull up a good chair. I hope you're already comfortable. And we start off the first picture, which was taken shortly after 3 o'clock in the morning, of a 4238 car at South Hill Junction. Now, to keep your interest, we do have some quizzes, just like we did back a year ago. And so the quizzes for which we will provide the answers are as follows. What percentage of the photos were taken on or from Brownsville Road? Remember, the presentation has Brownsville Road in the title. Second, how many photos of the future terrible trolley make it into the presentation? The World Series was being played at this time, and if you notice this, well, this is October. Yes, the World Series used to be in October, but now with the expanded playoff, it goes into the beginning part of November. But Game 5 of the World Series was being played in Pittsburgh, so that's half the answer to the question of what teams were playing. Then the other question associated with the World Series is what was the final score? But don't go Google it, because you may miss a picture of a terrible trolley or Brownsville Road or an illegally parked car or two or three or four. And so the last question, which I think will become pretty clear why we're asking this, is how many illegally parked cars are in this presentation? So at South Hills Junction, the new camera actually was a great step up for me over the previous camera, because it had an internal light meter. And I think somehow I thought that meant it would always, when it said it had there was a red light and a green light. And if the green light was on, it was overexposed, red light, it was underexposed. To get both lights out, picture's well exposed. So I think that is what happened here, is it liked this exposure, so that's why I took it. It was a handheld, you can tell by the not exact sharpness. But then I also tried a deliberate overexposure, which in this case did not work out very well. Remember, this is the days of film, rangefinder cameras and film. So this is a library car. I took it into central Pittsburgh. This is at Wood and Fifth, where there was about a 10-minute layover. I took one picture here, and then off to library we went. And this is the Simmons Loop. I misidentified this in the last show, and unfortunately I can't go back and fix the recording to say get rid of the West Library here, but I should have known better, and I do now. So you see, these are educational for everyone, including the presenter. So this is the image that the light meter said I should take, which does nicely show the inside of the car. And then this was the image that I thought I like this also, because it gives you a better view of what the car exterior looks like. It also highlights a fault with the lens, which you no doubt have noticed here in the lower left. I don't recall what the exact term of this is, but it was sort of the little red cone, and it does pop up in various places when there is a very bright light shining. Another reason then, I do know now that, well, actually the timing doesn't work out, but What's library is different from Simmons is because at 4 o'clock in the morning when we left library, there were only 2 people on the trolley. The motorman was sitting back here, and I was sitting here getting to operate the car up to West Library, which I can tell you for a 17-year-old was quite the thrill. Hell, at being 70, it's still fun to drive a PCC. Went up to South Hills Junction and then walked over to the shop, Tunnel Car House for a while, and took a number of pictures. That was the paint shop, not very environmentally friendly. Here we have some cars just sitting over a pit, probably for inspections. And though freshly painted for 1717, has already been dented. Outside, it's interesting to see all of the girder rail. Of course, it does appear to be installed just around where there are turnouts. But in Philadelphia, there's a lot of discussions, at least among the fans. Oh, why don't they put girder rail in there? Why do they put this concrete down and make a flangeway out of the concrete? Well, here in the U.S., it's the cost is prohibitive, we'll say. But when Pittsburgh Railways Corporation was built, no problem. Even in the yard, they had girder rail, which actually looked pretty good. Outside of the shop, we have some more cars basking in the night, with a nightliner, either a nightliner going by or an operator getting ready to head out into the morning rush hour. And then we see the first ever use of the now ubiquitous head and shoulder silhouette showing up on the front of 1728. I wish I had known then what I know now. I could have made a fortune, because every one of you who including myself, who don't put a picture into a place where a photo goes, has this symbol. Back up at the station, a Drake car came along, and I took it out to Drake. This is a case where the light meter really didn't do a good job, and then the bright one version isn't really good either because of where I was standing, and you're looking straight. Actually, there are two lights here, and the reason I know that is this double cone is going up to the edge of the picture here. So this is at about 6 o'clock in the morning. Get back to South Hills Junction, and it's beginning to get light, and the clouds are beginning to go away, which tells me I'm going to have a very good day on Brownsville Road if I ever get there. But first, because last time in April, I did ride the line to Beltshoover and back. You may recall I said that I didn't get out and take any pictures because I was told it was not a very good area. Somebody should have told me about that east side of Cleveland, but nobody did. So I thought that at 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning, it would be okay to jump out of a car and take a picture. So I grabbed an outbound, a pullout on the Beltshoover line, and at the loop at Chalfont and Gehring, they had a 2-minute layover, and I took a picture, and this is my one shot there. Of note, this loop still exists, even though there were only 32 days, including the day of this photo, that the trolley was going to be running. And in fact, this is now a park, and where the rails are, they've either been paved over or have been sealed in such a way that from here all the way around the loop, you can still see where the rails were. Thought that was that's kind of a nice little touch for the neighborhood. After being there, it was time to get a couple more pictures on Arlington Avenue because back in April, I had only gotten a few shots up near the intersection of Arlington and Warrington. I wasn't really concerned that this route here would be completely abandoned forever because even at this time there was talk that you need to have a bypass for the tunnel, and so I was never worried that these were the only shots I ever would take. So I got off the inbound car here at Newton Street, waited for an outbound car to come up the hill, as it did. Trust me, this is 1623, but the numbers on the side of the repainted cars and even in the back, which you can't see because they're put right under the very rusty port of the retriever, didn't really help too much. But so the 1623 and the 1622 were out on Arlington Avenue on the Beltshoover line, waiting for a car to, actually it was the 1623 to come back. Did take this picture of downtown Pittsburgh. Was thinking of doing one of the then and now shots, but because I could get up against the edge of the sidewalk, whereas the Google Map camera is restricted to the center of the street, there really wasn't a good comparison. But there's Pittsburgh in an October morning in 1971. By that time, the 1623 was headed back into town, and shortly thereafter, 1622 came by and was headed out of town. And that gave me enough time to walk down to Carson Street and catch 1622 going back into town. And it looks like all day the 1622 and 23 went back and forth. And as soon as the 1622 went by me, a minute or two later, here came 1623. So this location right here, which is right where the light rail now crosses across the Monongahela River, This was the midpoint of the line. Then we went over to Smithfield Street to take some pictures of outbound cars. And this is getting towards the end of rush hour, so there were a lot of pull-ins. And in Pittsburgh, pull-ins are shown with a car house destination. And I really liked that when I saw it in April, but I wasn't in the right position to get good pictures of that. And it doesn't happen all the time. I get that. But in places like Philly, there is no car house sign that is put up, or if there is, it doesn't get put up. But the cars that come in off of the line just put themselves up as Route 36, which I think is now the T5, to 73rd and Elmwood. So you can get 73rd and Elmwood destinations on, say, the Baltimore line or the mostly the Baltimore line because the Chester. So anyway, I like the car house sign. Plus, you also got the opportunity to get pictures of 3 streetcars lined up waiting to turn left off of Fort Pitt Boulevard to come across the bridge. Such as this one. One of these was the picture car in one of the previous pictures. And I know that because I took a guess that of those 3 cars, this was the first that came by. The little black bag is my camera bag right here. It was in a couple pictures in April. And early in my photography career, I made sure there was a picture of the little black bag in at least one picture in each city I visited, so that if I ever did shows in the future, I already had a title, Travels of the Little Black Bag. Brownsville Road's much better title for this show, though. So we have some more cars coming out. South Hills Junction, clearly that's a pull-in. That's also a more recent destination sign. Up onto Fort Pitt Boulevard, looking into the sun, reveals the other fun thing about my lens is you saw that the light bounced around in the lens, giving you the shape of the aperture. But if you turn around, looked really good. This outbound car or an inbound car here in the same place on Fort Pitt Boulevard. Continued to walk in town onto Grant Street for a little bit. Outbound streetcar. What grabs my attention on this image is the carpooler in the Pittsburgh red automobile, almost looking like he's hanging on for dear life as the cars squeal around this 90-degree turn. Meanwhile, this streetcar has just left a safety island, and with all this traffic around here, that's a good thing the safety island is there. Looking up Grant Street from 2nd Avenue, got 1 or 2 pictures. Buses show up in these, which I paid absolutely no attention to at the time, which I now look back and say I wish I had. This is a very busy intersection, not only from traffic. Notice there's another safety island here, but all this trackage that's still in place. Even though most of it is not being used, there's still wire over this move, which I'm not sure why that exists because you can't get off the picture anymore. But in days gone by, actually, well, there were a lot of trolleys, streetcars that could have used that. In front of the William Penn Hotel, take a look at the marquee, take a look at the condition of the building. Looks like some renovations were going on. Look at the obsolete airline travel agency there. This is now across the street from the BNY Mellon Center and the entrance to the Steel Plaza subway station. At this point, I pretty much got what I wanted to do as far as outbound pull-in cars, and it was time to go out to on Brownsville Road. Before we do, though, just take a moment to look at the difference between 1971 and 2024. A lot of interesting streetscaping on Grant Street, but the Omni, I think this is now the Omni William Penn Hotel, really did a nice job. Building looks a lot better now than it did 50 some odd years ago. So I took a streetcar out to the end of the Carrick line. This is Brownsville Road. This portion that we're going to now walk is in red, which is about 2 7/10 of a mile. It's actually 3 miles up to Arlington Avenue from the loop at Bellcrest Street. The 53 in the way that it ran when I was there, actually a fairly new routing. I mean, there'd been streetcars out to Carrick for forever, but the 53 used to come up Brownsville Road, down South 18th Street, up Carson Street, and across the 10th Street Bridge into town from the east. This all changed in February of 1966, and I think the historian archivist Chris Walker of the Pennsylvania Trolley Museum for pointing this out to me in response to a question I had. In February of 1966, the portion of the route across the Monongahela was abandoned, and the 53 came in all the way on Carson Street to Smithfield Street. And that was the result of some abandonments of one of the lines that had run along Carson Street, and I guess Pittsburgh thought it was important to have service there. A little bit later on, in March of '68, the 48 Arlington route, which essentially went this way into the tunnel, it was abandoned. And the 47, which was Carrick via tunnel, which essentially did what the 53 does now, was abandoned. And so the 53 that we know came off of 18th Street, rerouted onto Arlington Avenue and this little side street around here, down to Warrington, down the hill, and in that way. So the 53 that I saw earlier in the year, and you're going to see now, really only has existed for about 5 years. Now, one of the things I did not do, that's why it says Brownsville Road, no photos, is this was as far south as I got in April. If you recall, back in April, I did walk all around where the Route 44 looped around several blocks. That gets you to this intersection of Bousman and Brownsville Road. So this section here, which is in orange on on Brownsville Road, we didn't get to. But I had taken some pictures. And you may wonder, well, what did they look like? So you're going to get an opportunity. Not only to see that, but any images of the 1711 that you see do not count. Whew, okay. Well, that was a quick trip back to April. Some of you may have gotten the full effect of that quick trip. Some of you probably saw 1 or 2 slides and wondered what the heck was going on. Depends completely on your internet speed. But hopefully everybody has now gathered back, and we are at Brentwood Loop. Bellcrest Street is in the background with an inbound car on the 53. We start off by noting what this looks like now and what it looks like then. It's still used as a transit loop, only this time for buses. The cars still go around where the buses go around in a clockwise direction. And while the vast majority of poles to support the overhead have gone away, I find it fascinating that these two poles, leaning as they were back in 1971, are still standing. Nothing is attached to this pole, and there is a wire going to this light stand, but the wire is the wire that supports the electrical wire. So this obviously is now not needed to be powered. So these poles are probably not long for this world. So for the rest of the time on Brownsville Road, what you will see is on the right-hand side, there is a map, so that this is a little bit more interesting than listening to me drone on about an inbound car and an outbound car, and this one's red and that one's gray, and Googling at the, or Googling, I should say, at the price of gasoline of 36 cents a gallon, which there were some comments about that in the chat very early on. So on this map, which there are a couple segments because Brownsville Road doesn't go truly north-south, this is where I am standing, and the arrow is pointing in the direction that I am looking. So in this case, I am looking north at an outbound car, and I list the car number and the direction. And I found, as I was putting these maps together, I thought, well, I can know whether I'm looking inbound or outbound. Well, it wasn't always obvious, particularly when it clouded up. It's a weather alert. It gets cloudy at one point. So it's the car and the direction, and Brownsville Road, Stewart Avenue. In future ones, I just use the name of the street because I do find that street, avenue, boulevard, that kind of thing, it only gives you fodder to get tripped up on there, because some of these streets don't really look very avenue-ish to me, but that isn't necessarily what an avenue is. So this is an inbound car a little bit further north from the loop, which is down here. Note that this is a car stop, and there we see the inbound car stop sign here. The outbound car stop sign is not visible, and we have a good shot of this, but even at where there were streetcars, Pittsburgh was beginning to install regular transit stop signs. And for all I know, that may have been, they had just come through and done that in advance of knowing that this route was on limited time. A little bit further north, outbound with the car stop signs on both sides. This is the one of the difficulties of taking pictures along here is you had to take a picture when the car came by, and you had to live with whatever surroundings you were in unless you had staked yourself out at a nice location. And after this picture, I actually went up to this curve where in the map where I'm circling, but it's this location here to the right of the car to catch an outbound car. And so between those two pictures, I think I did a pretty good job of capturing the sort of essence of that portion of Brownsville Road, which is the whole reason to walk the line, because if you visit cities and ride the lines from end to end, which you want to do, you generally take pictures only at the ends. And there's so much more than just the ends. And very early on, fortunately, in my trolley chasing days, a friend of mine who was a few years older, but they're certainly more experienced, had said, the way to get pictures is walking the line. And said, okay. And basically, I've stuck with that pretty much the rest of my picture-taking career. I was walking the line in Cleveland when I had my little encounter with unfriendly locals. Interestingly, I have never walked the lines in Philadelphia. And I'm just going to leave that comment and let it drop on the table, and you guys can figure out why. But moving further up on Brownsville Road, we're into the next section of the map. We've got a definitely tired-looking streetcar coming outbound. It looks as sort of as junky as the junkyard in the background. Um, and then there's this cool little mailbox here, of which there's quite a few of them. In looking through the pictures, which I have done a number of times, there are a lot of them. There was one out at the building at South Hills Junction too. Here we have 1738 coming inbound. This is the featured car and the show picture to the title photo, and it's by a Texaco gas station. And I point that out because in the title slide, it was next to two gas stations, a Boron and an Esso station. And I began to think that every picture I took of the 1738 was by a gas station. That wasn't the case, but it wins the prize for the most next to gas station photos of any other car that I saw that day. This is one of the locations where I definitely camped out and waited for a car to go by. And then I couldn't go past this without taking a picture of it. And for those of you who know the Skybus story, this is all you need to know. For those who don't, you can look it up. But Skybus was what was supposed to replace the remaining streetcar lines. Unfortunately, it was stopped, though it did. There was a short demonstration route that was memorialized a little HO model that was at the Pennsylvania Trolley Museum over the holidays. So basically, it's an airport people movement. Road work being done on Brownsville Road up to the limits, but not into where the tracks are. I'm not even sure they're getting right next to the tracks in this case. Another gas station, this time with 1772 coming outbound. This Woodford Road is this street right up here. And it becomes the bottom of the next map, right down here. And this was actually probably the longest break in cars that I encountered, because you notice these pictures are both of 1772. It was outbound and inbound, and nothing else came by my camera between those two occurrences. This is the title shot. Actually, I did pick it out on St. Patrick's Day, and that's so O'Dato's Cara Cafe, where a member of the digital communications team of the Pennsylvania Trolley Museum is observing this show from. So take your laptop, Joe, show this around to everybody in the room, and hope you don't have to buy everyone around. Of note, Boron Oil Company is separate from Esso. Notice, if you remember, at the end of the line, Boron was the only oil company there. One last thing I do want to point out in this, just keep in mind this church steeple here, because it figures into a lot of photos and can be seen for long distances. But from this location, if you turn around and look outbound, this is what you get. Another pretty scene with a church. A couple of churches along here, similar to Chester Avenue in Philadelphia. The church that was in two pictures ago is here, the closer church. Here's a close-up of the transit stop sign that we're beginning to take over in various places from car stop signs. So I have every reason to believe this Boron is the same Boron that owned the gas stations. Kind of an interesting combination of businesses to be in: sell leaded gasoline, cause cancer, handle the funeral. So there's your black humor for the day. Timing wise, you know, it would have been nice to get inbound and outbound cars, but I wanted to get the funeral home, and so much so that we're going to see what it looks like today. Well, Kuntz didn't survive, but Boron did. At least as a funeral home. Boron doesn't seem to be a gas station anymore. Probably, I mean, they must have sold out to someone. So a couple things to look at in this image comparison is that on the west side, these poles are still here. They're less wires, and certainly this pole, which is that pole, has one less cross arm on it. And on the east side, you'll have noticed that there was wires running along it, and those are the 600-volt power supply for the trolley. Most of them are gone, except the two that I pointed out there at the loop. In some cases, there are some of them still standing. You're going to be looking for them now, but they aren't really connected to much of anything. One of the things I used to do when I lived in Delaware, in Wilmington, was just look around and see how many of the poles from their trolleys and then trolley bus system, which went away in 1960, were still standing. It's an incredible number. And didn't seem to decrease much in the 20 years that I lived there either. So moving on, we'll go inbound a little bit more. And in keeping with the funeral discussion here, we're getting close to one of the many cemeteries that are along this route. And in fact, we're about to enter an area I sort of call Cemetery Central, or the Colma of Pittsburgh. Colma being the city south of San Francisco where people are buried. There are more dead people there than living people. Got another picture where it was difficult to really get a good view of the street, but managed to do so. And this is one of the few places where I'm sorry, this is 1971. So these trolley poles were still there and useful for a little bit longer. And in fact, the Pennsylvania Trolley Museum's streetcar book, Pittsburgh Streetcar City, has a picture of the wires being removed on Carrick's line in an unidentified location on Brownsville Road. So thought that was interesting. Turning around, here we see that church steeple again. And it's almost looks like it's gold top, and that's because of the problem with the lens and the light bouncing back and forth. This was a nice long panoramic view that I saw and decided it was worth taking a picture of, even if the streetcar was a long way away. This is the Southside Cemetery here. I climbed up on a companion set of stairs. This is a duplex, so there's one house here, one house where I'm standing. And the resident came out to chat with me and ask me what I was doing, and she stayed out there while the car that you saw in the way background there came along to get a closer image of it. I think she got dressed to match the car that was parked out front. So walk across the street, turn around 180 degrees, and this is the image you get. And oh, look, there's the church steeple again. So this is the main entrance to the Southside Cemetery. This is being it on the map that I'm showing you. Notice that there's Albert Cemetery in there, and there's actually a couple little mini cemeteries in there. Not to be confused with the cemeteries that are in this green spot up here at a place I call the Carrick Curve, but we'll get to that in just a minute. So walking up towards the curve, past these abandoned tracks. Here is a outbound looking set of track, and here is an inbound set, well, from the inbound. So this is where the Carrick car house used to be. Going over to the map here, it's the little shopping center that's now shown. In 1971, it was already a shopping center. Carrot Car House closed, I believe, around 1953, probably for a shopping center. The B&O station in Wilmington, Delaware, was closed and knocked down to make way for a parking lot for an Acme. So go figure. Do pay attention, however, to this billboard here. It is a star of some of the next images. For example, here, this is the billboard. This is St. George's Cemetery, and there's a St. Joseph's and a St. Elsewhere cemetery over here. And just beyond these trees is the north stop of the Overbrook line. Now, you can't easily get there from here. It's quite a walk, but you actually can. The street comes up and Noble's right here. You can get up to Brownsville Road, which meant back in the day you were 2,000 feet away as the crow flies from two light rail streetcar lines. Took about a mile to get there. Bon Air stop is a little bit further north, and actually the street that it connects to in a more direct way is just off the map to the north. We'll see it soon. But at the curve, it really was probably the highlight of Brownsville Road and did give you an opportunity to get a nice side shot of cars as they passed. You know, not much you can do about automobiles going by. There was a Dairy Queen there. I did not stop to have lunch. The Dairy Queen is no longer there. But behind me is a building where there's now a pizzeria. At the north end of the curve, it's where this is the end of the cemetery. There's a Chevy dealer, sort of the sign's blocked here. You'll see it in a different view. But if you turn around and look down the hill, in 1971, this was a Kroger. This looks like almost a child care center, but not sure really what it was back in 71, but it's a pizzeria now, and that's proof. And this part of the building is that. And looks like the door is in the same relative position. And the billboard is still there. The billboard is still there, and it's still supported the same way. It looks like it's sort of gone on a slight diet, but kind of interesting combination. In 1971, it wants you to smoke a lot, and in 2024, it's telling you we can give you home care because you're sick and dying because of smoking. There's your public service announcement for the evening. Continuing north, we have this is the Chevy dealer. You see the sign there. I thought it was interesting how small the automobile dealerships were at the time. I have no idea where they stored their cars for sale, but you know they both had, and even the American Motors thing had a showroom. Walking further north, where there's now a McDonald's, was not there when I was there. We have a car going outbound by a church, an active church back in 1971, for sale now, unfortunately. This was one of these, I think I planned it, even though it was not the best of images because of the poles. And then as soon as the car came by, it jumped off the embankment here, went across the street. So you're going to see, if you've been watching the little arrow, it's just going to spin 180 degrees. And inbound is now 1738. And the car that we just saw is just going around the curve. And gives you an idea of, you know, this picture shows all of this. We're coming up on Knox Avenue, which provided a very interesting vantage point because Knox Avenue is where the 44 cars turn off at Charles Street, head south a little bit, and then on Bowsman Street, it turns east to join up to Brownsville Road. And yes, there is a streetcar way back there. Now, Brownsville Road also goes down a bit, but not at quite steep an angle. And sort of you can see that here. This is the now closed church. Notice there's a car stop sign and there is the new stop sign with an outbound car. I'm standing on Knox Avenue. I consider this a picture taken from Brownsville Road, however. Walking down the hill on Brownsville Road looks like this. Looking into the sun. 1738 posing in front of an Arco station. Got to admit, it did not play favorites. We've seen it in front of a Texaco station, an Esso station, a Boron station, and an Arco station. This is down at the corner of Bowsman, Amanda Way, and Brownsville Road. This is now called sort of the Triangle District, and one of these is the Triangle Building. So there's a street coming in here, which is Hayes Avenue. You got Brownsville Road, you got Bowsman, and then Amanda. This line that you see, if you're bored looking at trolleys and looking at what's around it, this is a track that connects to the inbound trackage on Amanda Street, so that you could get, if you needed to detour, it gave you an alternate route, just like the alternate sizes and paint schemes of these doors on this inbound 44 car. Oh, this is as far as we walk on Brownsville Road. I then took and walked on Amanda Street over to Arlington Avenue, where I took this picture of an outbound car heading towards Carrick on Arlington Avenue. I'm sorry, a street that's a mere 3 lanes is hardly an avenue in my book. But what I want to point out, not only this image, but the next one, because I did not write down the street properly. And I figured that out because the next picture is a car coming uphill on Arlington Avenue, also heading outbound. And so I had to do a Google walk through along Arlington Avenue here, and did discover that this was Amanda Street. This building is what this building looks now. It's lost its turret, but the corner shape has been modified a bit, but is clearly the same building. This little stone wall is this stone wall. So, I don't know really what people did before you were able to do Google Maps to figure out where you were 50 years ago, but it's a great help now. This is at Loyal Avenue, or Loyal Way, excuse me. I'm walking inbound here. It's of course one-way outbound. I continue down Arlington Avenue to get to where it meets Warrington, and that's in the background here, and then kept walking in towards South Hills Junction, and this 53 came by. And I'm showing you now what it looks like then and what it looks like now, because here I knew where I was. This is Asteroid Street, and this is Asteroid Street. I'm sorry, this is an outbound car. I think I got that right. Yes. So Warrington Avenue used to be 2 trolley lanes, 2 parking lanes, basically 4 lanes of vehicles. And in its rebuilt state, it is only 3 lanes of vehicles. And in fact, there's only, you lost parking here. I mean, it's clear that the light rail car tracks are further away than the streetcar were. but it was just an amazing transformation. But you do see this building here is this building over here, and Asteroid Avenue or Asteroid Street still on the sign. Continuing the walk, we just happened to come in, see car 1623 heading into town. It's now getting close to 4 o'clock after having started at the Brentwood Loop at 10:15. And so 1623 has been out here kind of like all day. Inbound looks like it's a pull-in on the 53 as I have it labeled. And this is at 4:15, which is essentially the end of my walk. So it was a 6-hour walk. And the operator very kindly took me down to South Hills Junction. There we are at South Hills Junction. So I don't know whether he took pity on me or whether the operators would pick people up who wanted to go at least as far as a car house. So at South Hills Junction, happened to catch this shot of a car coming in from Library. This location here is sort of where the dead end for the subway local turnback tracks is, because that was built on the former Overbrook right-of-way. Somebody just noted in chat, could be intentional. Some lights did go yellow-green. Yes, it was intentional, and I was really happy when I hadn't really noticed it before the previous show, but Kristen jumped on it and said, oh, look, you've got the light in the changing phase. And so now, whenever I see a Pittsburgh picture and I got the green and orange, I think that's great, because the timing of the picture had nothing to do with what was on the traffic lights. It was where I wanted the trolley positioned. To me, this is quintessential Pittsburgh South Hills trolleys. This is a wonderful green canopy over South Hills Junction, beat up red cars, but this is, again, at 4:20 or so in the afternoon. You got people out here in suits and ties, outbound, inbound. The operators are looking pretty dapper. This gentleman is fixing his hat. Someone who just got off a car is walking up these absolutely inaccessible but not obtrusive steps. And it is as pretty as I think South Hills Junction now looks as ugly. And there is a photo later on in this show that I will use to give you that bone-jarring comparison. But the first time I went to South Hills Junction after this bus tunnel had opened and light rail had been built up, it was, oh my God, because it was nowhere near as pretty as this. So after taking this picture, I got on a car out to Clearview Loop. So now we have a summary map of the next segment, which is not as long as the 3 miles, nearly 3 miles on Brownsville Road. But in 1971, in April, we had pictures along here. And today, we're going to go along Washington Road and the private right-of-way, all right, up to at least Edge Hill. And that's because the light ran out. Now, of course, this red segment does not operate, and you've got really a unique suburban tunnel underneath Mount Lebanon. And it's not really as, the street isn't as attractive anymore. And in keeping with the autumn tour of Pittsburgh cemeteries, we will be going by the Mount Lebanon Cemetery. So this was the car I took from South Hills Junction out to Clearview Loop. This is what it looks like today. This building is standing essentially in this location here. Um, this road is Alfred Street, which provides access down the hill, and actually right there, you can't see it well, but that's where the light rail crosses Alfred Street, and behind this building is the approach to the one of the two new stations that was built when the subway was built. Take a look at this building. This is actually a 90-degree curve here, but it doesn't look that way because of the wide angle of the Google automobile taking the picture. But that building is this building that right there, and you can see how close the tracks get to the building. In fact, this is even angled. The building up here isn't, but this is where the tracks were. We'll go back 2 pictures. You can see it looks like there's a lot of stuff off to the right, but it's just basically where I'm standing is the corner of the building. So we now walk up. So I do want to point out this is at about 4:50. The time was at the bottom of the one of the earlier pictures. And here we have an outbound car. Washington Road looked really nice. I think they had just done some sort of streetscaping with these UFO-ish lamps. Walking further inbound, you encounter the outbound car and you take a picture. And then loud commotion being heard, turned around, watch the little arrow over on the right, and this was the image that I was able to obtain. Inbound car, lady trying to board because she was not going to get by on the sidewalk. Excitement over, continued walking inbound. You can tell the sun angle is, sun's getting low. It's close to 4:40 on the day of my trip. This is one of the many apartment complexes that are still there. I looked at, you can actually find the names on the Google Maps. They don't show up on the version I made. This one has balconies, interestingly. The other two that you run into do not. This is at Oak Street. This is not a great picture, but part of when you're walking the line is you kind of take what you get. And if a car comes by and it's not in a completely terrible location, you get a picture of it because there'll be something interesting about the streetscape that you'll want to see later. And by the way, there's a gas station in the back, which is in a couple of other pictures. Gulf Oil, which we found one of them over on Brownsville Road. Well, you know, you did need to take pictures whenever a car came because you might suddenly find yourself with no cars. And that is why I took this picture at 5:30. Is it'd been about 10 or 15 minutes before from the last shot that I took. And I was beginning to get worried because I did not, it sounds silly, I know this, but I didn't know how to get back into downtown if the trolleys weren't running. I wasn't familiar with the bus routes. I knew I could get there by trolley. And while the train wasn't for nearly 8 hours, it was going to get dark soon, and I really didn't want to be out and about. So I did take this picture of the street, but without a trolley, though there is a bus in the background, so maybe that counts. Fortunately, a little bit, not that much longer after I took the picture, this inbound car off of the 36 showed up, detouring off of the Overbrook line to head into the depot. So I did jump on that to head inbound. Now, notice also it's 72 degrees, twice the price of gasoline. But not much has changed in the last 50 years. If you look at this on the video afterwards, when it gets posted, you will see the facades have not really changed that much of these buildings. The church is still there. This is Twin Towers apartment. It's still there. There's another apartment in front of it. The Sunoco, however, that's selling gas at 36 cents a gallon has been replaced by an AutoZone. But otherwise, amazingly similar. This location right now is, well, where I'm standing, is the end of the parking garage that was built over the top of the trolley tunnel. But I got lucky because as we were heading through almost at Broadway Beachview, a parade of trolleys started coming the other direction. So I quickly got off and actually boarded this car. Not quite sure how I fit in it. I mean, if you'll notice, they are jammed to the gills. And came up to Washington and Church. And this image taken from the safety island where I didn't even have time to get off it before the next car came. When you go to the Pennsylvania Trolley Museum, they have a replica of a safety island made from a form that the Traffic or Streets Department had to make them, that they donated to the museum. And so there's a nice, I was going to say reproduction, but it's the real thing, just made more modern. So with trolleys again to take pictures of, it was time to start walking inbound again, because there's McFarland Avenue. There's McFarland on the right. There are the maps. So this was the area that I had gotten pictures of, but without any vehicles. Now I had more vehicles than I knew what to do with. You got, this trolley is still jam-packed. You can see that. This one doesn't, it's harder to tell. But you can't see any light shining in through the side of it, even though the sun is coming in from the right-hand side. This next picture, I could not even write down the car numbers. There was so much activity as a result of the faucet being opened and this bunch of delayed trolleys coming by. So we have 3 trolleys, 1 bus in this image. This is Dormont Junction in the beginning of the show when I was doing the morning pictures there at South Hills Junction. You notice, if you were sharp-eyed, you noticed one of the cars was destined to 42 Dormont. So it was a short turn here. And it gives you some idea of just what the traffic must have been out here 20, 30 years earlier, because another mile inbound is Neald Avenue, which was a turn back and had its own route number, 43. 42 was Dormont. A mile behind me, not even a mile behind me, is Clearview Loop. I mean, there was just all sorts of places to turn trolleys. This is also an interesting shot to show you the difference between the paint schemes that Pat was putting on the 1700s and the 1600s. The roof of the 1600s is white. The roof of the 1700s is gray. There is a gray stripe along the top. I guess they realize that it's gonna get dirty with water dripping off of the wire. But basically, white roof, gray roof, and a Pittsburgh Railway car with what I believe was the most common front treatment, but I do recall seeing pictures with a white triangle and then the let's just dip the car in red paint motif from the windows down. Here we've got 3 cars, 2 still outbound, 1 going inbound. Looks like the passenger load is getting a little bit lower, which makes sense. This is now about a half hour after the faucet got turned on. We have an image from the layover siding, which I presume was used by cars before they went into the very short Y. Maybe even so short that once you committed to doing the Y, the car needed to finish the Y before anything else came out. Down the hill a little bit further at Raleigh and Biltmore, you see where we are here. There's this nice little grassy spot. And as soon as this car came by, I ran across by that pole to get this picture, so much so that we actually got a bonus picture of my camera bag. And then went up about half a block to where those people are crossing the street and took this picture, which has, again, 3 trolleys in it. This is very bucolic. Was being the operative word, because this is what it looks now. This is ugly. I'm sorry. It's functional, but ugly. And the contrast that you see here is very similar. It's not as dramatic, but is just as jarring, I would say, as the difference between what South Hills Junction used to look like and what it looks like now. So this garage is sort of built into the hill, and the tunnel is built under the hill. You notice that the tracks rise up. Well, no, they stay at grade and then go underneath. So interesting, good place to put a tunnel portal. Then heading up into the private right-of-way, Park Boulevard, Dell Avenue. Now, notice the building here with this brick porch. Notice this sign, and then please remember, statute of limitations has run out. We clearly walked up here to get another outbound picture. And then up to the street, somebody was following me. So was a trolley, and there's the same building. This is at Alabama Street. I then, looking at the map here, did walk up here and then look down Dell Avenue for the next image, taking it to capture the right-of-way. Now, this used to be a stop. You can tell there's a little bit of pavement here that looks like a stop, and in the other direction, it was either here or here. Notice that there's a newspaper dispensing box here. There were a handful of stops between essentially Mount Lebanon, Beachview stop Dormont, and Hillsdale Avenue over here. They're all gone now. And the trolleys go really slow through here because there are no grade crossing and everything. They did not go quite that slow back in the day here, but it is agonizingly slow. And when I was talking with Kristen as we were going through the show before today, she says that it's like 25, 30 minutes into town by light rail, and you can drive it at 13. Now, I don't know what the traffic is like on that, but I believe it, because the entire way into South Hills, it does just seem like the cars are crawling along and stopping in many fewer places than they used to. This is Kilton Road, K with an I, K-I as in kilt. This road obviously was not the friend of a number of automobiles. You can see scrape marks here. It is quite the change in grade right where the streetcar tracks are. This next shot really accentuates that, which is why I took that picture. And now, if you notice over in the map, it doesn't show as a through street. And so, yes, this was when it got rebuilt to light rail standards, this was blocked off. I have no idea who was responsible for naming streets, because this is Kilton Road, and right next to it is Kelton Avenue. They're both narrow pieces of asphalt, one letter apart. Just saying. Interestingly, the fact that this line cuts across at a diagonal on a lot of blocks sort of makes it feel like it's not very straight, but it is. From this curve, you're looking straight back to Dormont, and this is one of the buildings back there. Also, from Kelton, it makes for a pretty picture. Here we have an inbound car, and as the light is beginning to completely fade from the sky. We have an outbound car coming off of the private right-of-way on Broadway, crossing Hillsdale Avenue, heading outbound. And this photo was inspired by the next photo. But I took this photo because there was a streetcar in it. This is looking outbound at Ordnance. But looking inbound, a friend of mine had given me a number of pictures. These are little black and white 3x3 prints, but it was taken from here with the trolley back here. And so it looked very much like the previous picture, this one. But the cars were beginning to get few and far between. So I decided the better part of valor was take this. I can compare it to the picture that it was the inspiration for, and I would be able to get on the next car and head in, which was a good thing because it was being followed by its follower. So I rode 1666 into South Hills Junction and tried a little bit more photography of the holding the camera still, but not really type as the light was fading. This was cars, they would come in, go around the loop, empty the fare box, actually take the fare box out, put it on the street, and then the car would go into the depot. Occasionally, the cops, I guess there was a cop there, but the pad employees would pick up the boxes and put them in a truck to go somewhere. This is what happens when you don't hold the camera very steady. This is a little bit better. This is an operator waiting his turn to have the fare box removed. And it's the same car, moved up a bit, slightly better picture. There is a cop standing by, as it turns out. This is being braced on the stairway that I mentioned early on that was unobtrusive but non-compliant for ADA. So with this, it was time to take the trolley into town, went to the train station, waited until dark 30 in the morning for the Broadway Limited, and went to Paoli where I was going to visit a friend whose last name was Drake. So I thought it was really kind of neat to be able to get pictures with the Drake destination. But this was at the end of the Broadway Limited. Now, you may or may not recognize this car. Since in the lower right-hand corner, I tell you what it is. This is now Bennett Levin's car. So it is still out there running in private service all these many years. On this mid-October morning, it was carrying some special passengers, including this kid who was waving to me as the businessmen coming in on the main line. Really, most of them couldn't care less, but this guy seemed to know something was different. And with that, the show itself is over. We still have the quiz, though. So I'll give you a couple moments. You can. Why don't we unmute everybody, Kristen, and we can see if anybody. Yes, the host is asking you to start my video.
Yeah, so we can see.
I'm going to keep on here for a minute.
Okay. Let me make it so folks can unmute themselves here. Okay. Go forth with your quiz.
Okay, so again, the questions were, what percentage of shots were taken on Brownsville Road? If you think you know the answer, let's put it in the chat. How many terrible trolley pictures? And what were the two teams in the World Series that I was able to listen to while I went walking along the street, including when that lady came out? She left the door open and you could hear the World Series going on, which was really pretty cool. And then how many illegally parked cars? All right, so everybody's being shy. Somebody did get the right teams. Pittsburgh and Baltimore were playing. That's correct. So coming from D.C., I told nobody where I was from. I figured D.C. was too close to Baltimore to be considered a person in enemy territory. By the way, Pittsburgh won the game 4-0, and they won the World Series. Woo! Yep. I was an early Pittsburgh fan. So the answers are here.
Oh, the future terrible doll.
Yeah, there was no terrible trolley back then.
Yeah.
It didn't
Well,
know
you
it
have
was
to
going
know
to
the-
become a terrible trolley.
Yeah. You have to know the
Oh.
number of the terrible trolley.
Right. And I credit someone from the Wilmington NRHS that got the first dry run of this show last week. I think it was Bill Monaghan who pointed out, you got a number of terrible trolley pictures in that show. I said, oh, yeah, oh, you're right. So, since 1711 did not appear in any of the shots except in the Wayback Machine portion, we had to figure out another interesting car to highlight. And then finally, one illegally parked car. Most creative illegally parked car I think I have ever seen. So I think with that, I will stop sharing.
Okay, I will take over really quick before we get to some questions. But David, feel free to look through the chat if you missed it while you were presenting.
Yeah.
I'll also invite everyone to turn their videos on now if you like. But before we get to those questions, I want to thank David for putting this presentation together. Let's for now, okay. But thank you so much for putting this together. Like someone said, it's just like a time capsule. And being in a time machine. So really great stuff. I personally love the mixture of freshly painted cars and like really just beat up cars that need a paint job. So fascinating stuff. We've got museum guide training coming up this weekend at the museum. I mentioned most of these other things as well coming up. The only one I didn't talk about was anything on wheels. So this is not a West Penn trolley meet year. That will be next year, but we still have our anything on wheels meet, which will be a lot of fun. Because it's literally like it's a car cruise and then literally anything on wheels. We've got cement trucks and armored cars and transit buses and school buses and auger trucks and all the stuff that the kids like to climb on too. So come out for that. It's a lot of fun. And I want to thank everyone for joining us, especially those of you who donated for tonight's program. I will share the link to support us in the chat, but that's patrolley.org/support. Thank you so much for coming. I hope you can join us for a future program. And like I said, if you're interested in giving a program, please reach out to me at the email address where you got your confirmation email for tonight. Okay, David, did you have anything in the chat that you wanted to talk about?
Yeah, we do. So first of all, it's fun to do the show. And if you have pictures, I would recommend you put a show together because I get the best version of the show. I get to go back for hours into Pittsburgh in 1971 and stare at the pictures and figure things out. A number of the little things that I pointed out in the show, I noted like the fourth time through. So highly recommend it. This Trolleyology has been a great thing, and I do see that someone is asking me, can I do more of these shows? Yes, I can. The next time I was in Pittsburgh was actually June of '72. If I recall correctly, the color of the Geisenheimer era just started up. So I will talk with Krista and we'll get scheduled. I'm not going to mention who brought these up because I don't want to mess up how you pronounce people's names. One individual asked, where do I eat? I didn't. I probably ate something at the train station in the evening, but typically I would not eat during the day. I mean, that's when you take pictures. Some people say, I don't need to sleep. I'll sleep when I'm dead. I'll eat when it's dark outside. And in those days, there was actually a food was available on the Greyhound bus station across the street from the train station, and the Greyhound bus station wasn't a pit. So, people who have reminiscing about being on Brownsville Road, they like the Carrick and Mount Oliver pictures.
Yeah,
A
there were
few
some
people
great
had
comments from
nobody has guessed the wrong teams in the World Series. I'm impressed with that.
yeah. There were some great comments from folks who grew up along the line and went to those
Yeah.
churches and the photos. So I'll send you a copy of the transcript of the chat as well.
Okay. So one individual says there was also a Y there off McFarland, nearly across the street from the famous A.B. Charles Hobby Shop. Yeah, I think that would be the loop. I mean the Y at Dormont, which was Route 42 cutback.
One
We
just
have.
came in that said, "Did you have to pay a fare every time you got on a new trolley, or did you have some sort of day pass?" Or
Oh, I paid, but I didn't take that many rides. Remember, I rode to the end and then walked. I probably didn't
ah,
pay to go from Belts Hoover down to South Hills Junction. Um, I think overnight I didn't pay. Certainly out and back. Maybe I paid when I got on, because there were no day passes. Because in April, and this is in the show that I gave, I was the last person to take a trip on the day pass that went away at 5 a.m. on Monday morning. I think it was April 12th or 13th, after Pat came off a strike. So there were no day passes at this point. Fare was cheap. We know how much it was because I found the poster that described what was going to happen with the fares after the last show, and it now resides at the Pennsylvania Trolley Museum. Krista, somebody says, when will this show be on YouTube?
yes, I'm kind of behind, right? I haven't done January or February
She's a
yet.
busy person. Hey,
I
she's
gotta
got
do
to
those first.
qualify to operate the cars, so when you get to the Trolley Museum, you can take a trip. So somebody points out that Arlington was always outbound, both for, yes, it was. I mean, it was one street, which knowing it had always been outbound helped me figure out exactly where the hell I took the picture, because I had the wrong street there. And I think it was because this may have been the trip that I had lost the record that I kept of where every picture was. And so the
Ah,
fact that I got as close to the right street as I did using just an SO street map, after realizing on the train that I lost my record of the pictures I'd taken, and it did pretty good. Someone points out the church that is closed is a Lutheran church. Yep. That as a Lutheran, I was sad to see that it was a Lutheran church that went away. But it is fairly recent. I think it was for sale in 2023. St. George's is to the left, St. Joseph's to the right. And John must be a Pittsburgh born, bred, and sleep, eat, and drink Pittsburgh. Okay, so we do have the answer, the story behind boron. So Ohio could only sell in Ohio. Boron was the name they chose to sell beyond Ohio. And it's not the same boron. Well, I think it makes a better story if it is, but that's interesting that it's not.
yeah.
So
So I also,
there we go.
oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, they said they always had a 47 carat via tunnel for AM and PM rush hours. All right, I would say check with Chris, because according to the streetcar book, that ceased to exist in 1968. But this highlights the interesting reroutes that you can have, and all the variations. And you could probably write 2 or 3 books on just that. Probably bore everybody but those of us on the call here to death. But I was fascinated by what happened, because you can look at the track map, figure out where it could have gone, why did it go here? It's going across 10th Street Bridge. Well, certainly the city wants to get rid of the tracks on 10th Street, just like they did all the other bridges. So, let's see. Lots of reminiscences, which is nice. I'm glad this brings back memories for people. Bicentennial PCC Stars and Stripes had tape deck that played. There's a pawn shop on the corner in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Okay.
And if anyone would like to unmute to ask a question, you should be able to do
quiet.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was muting a couple people. Sorry if I muted you, but we heard some background noise. It wasn't because I didn't want you to talk, but just because there was some background noise. Go ahead.
That was a Perry Como song, wasn't it? Pawn shop?
I don't know. I don't know that I saw any pawn shops. Not that I would have been looking for them.
But it was a Perry Como song.
Yeah, okay.
Anyway, I'm Angus from Vancouver, and I rode on the Warrington Arlington. It was like a sightseeing PCC back in 1976, and you got a chance to ride down the hill there, look over the city, and Butterman had a tape deck, and they were playing that song. And after a couple of round trips, he'd heard enough of it. He didn't want to hear it anymore. Like there was just a limit about that song. You can hear it on YouTube. You know, it's just a classic song. But that's one of my strongest memories of when I first visited Pittsburgh, was riding those PCCs and how incredible it was. I've got a lot of pictures I took at that time, particularly the psychedelic trolley, the Mod Desire. Yeah. And that's on my wallpaper on my desktop computer. So anyway, great show. I loved it. So thank you so much, David. Okay.
Awesome. Does anyone else have a comment or recollection or question for David? Awesome. Well, some great discussion, lots of wonderful comments in the chat. These are great, great shows. I'm so excited that young Dave was visiting Pittsburgh and documenting it with his little black camera bag. And very much looking forward to the next one, if you are so willing.
Yep. All I got to do is start the scanning.
Awesome. Yeah, you mentioned in our practice session, as long as you don't get booed off stage, you'll be back for another. And so I don't think you've been booed off stage. So we would be happy to have you back. So excellent. One final question. Did you ever leave the bag behind?
No.
No.
Did not.
Good.
No. And it actually had an additional life, though. The thing that actually killed it, I used it as a bowling ball bag.
Oh,
that was the end. And when I got a real bowling ball bag, I gave the little black bag a sad farewell. The bag was my book bag in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade 7th, 8th, and 9th grade when I lived in Europe.
Yes, I believe you told that story in the last program. And if you haven't seen Dave's earlier show, you can see that one. It's already on YouTube. Just search Pennsylvania Trolley Museum, and you'll see the Trolleyology playlist on there, where this one will eventually go.
I highly recommend it. Yeah. Yes. And now you can see whether I'm telling the same stories the same each time.
Excellent. So, so the next version of Dave that we'll see, will you be still 17 or have you turned 18?
Actually, if it's 72, I'll still be 17.
Okay. So still I did a lot of quite an adult.
Yeah. So to put this in perspective, though, this is April of 71, October. I'd been to Philadelphia 7 times in 2 years. In that same period of time. Okay. So, and God bless her, my mom let me run around like that. I think, especially when I had kids, 15, 16, and I thought to myself, there's no way in hell I'm going to let them do what I did. And the world has changed a bit. I get that, but still, the idea of being out and about in high school is, well, we get good pictures out of it and interesting cameras, lens lights.
Great. Alrighty, well, we'll go ahead and wrap it up there. I want to thank everybody again for joining us today. And thanks so much to Dave Warner for sharing. Again, if you have an idea for Trolleyology, or if you'd enjoy giving a program, scanning some of those old photos, please reach out to me at the email address that you got in your email confirmation tonight. That's kfred@patrolley.org. I hope you can join us in the coming weeks and months on Zoom or in person. Thank you again. Have a wonderful rest of your week, everyone. Good night.
Bye-bye. Good night.
everybody.
Bye.